I was shocked when a billionaire stopped for me. A black girl kicked off a bus on the highway. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun blazed down, mocking me as I stood there, bags in hand, heart racing. The engine's roar from the highway faded into a hum. Everything felt surreal. The bus doors slammed shut, and with them, my hopes of escaping my life, my pain. I was stranded, a speck of dust on a busy highway. My stomach churned with hunger, my spirit heavy with shame. I could still hear the bus driver's snarling words echoing in my mind. "Get off. We don't take your kind here." I held back tears, trembling. No one turned to help. Cars zoomed by, glaring headlights flickering like mocking stars against my dark skin. Behind me, the grass was dry, patches brown. In front, the asphalt stretched on endlessly, a cruel reminder of my isolation. Was I invisible? It felt that way. My phone buzzed in my pocket, my mom's picture glaring back at me. I hadn't told her. I couldn't let her see me like this. Despite everything, I had my little sister, Maya, to think of. She was counting on me. But what could I offer her now? How could I be strong when my own world felt like it was crumbling? Then out of nowhere, a sleek black car coasted to a stop beside me. The tinted window slid down, revealing a man who looked too polished for this part of town. His expression was a mix of curiosity and concern. "Are you okay?" His voice was smooth, but it sent shivers down my spine. Did he really care? Or was he just another passerby? My heart raced. I could feel the weight of his gaze. Was he just another reminder of how out of place I felt? I hesitated, eyes darting. "I just need a ride." Hope tinged my voice. I barely knew where I was or where I was going, but I had to get out of there. I expected him to pull away, to dismiss me like all the others. Instead, he nodded. "Hop in." I hesitated again. My mind raced with possibilities. What was his story? Why did he stop for me? There was something oddly magnetic about him. His dark hair tousled, a deep frown creasing his brow. I could sense a mystery cloaked around him. Before I could answer, he leaned closer. "You look like someone who could use a break." What did he see? A lost girl? A fighter? I could feel my chest tighten, my heart pounding louder than the roar of passing cars. I hesitated just a second more. But what choice did I have? I climbed into the plush seat. The cool air blowing around me felt like freedom. As I sat there, a million questions bubbled to the surface. Who was he? Why me? Did I just step into something dangerous? My gut twisted. Yet, there was a flicker of hope. Then came the question that shattered my brief moment of exhilaration. What happened back there? I wasn't prepared for this. My breath caught. I could feel heat crawling up my cheeks. I stared at the passing landscape, uncertain. Nothing. Just life. Suddenly, the weight of my truth threatened to crush me. Could I trust him? My hands trembled in my lap. All I could think of was Maya. I couldn't fail her. If I didn't tell him, would this be my chance at something new? As I wrestled with my thoughts, a shadow passed over his face, and I knew deep down I was on the brink of something big. But with every heartbeat, I felt a dark cloud looming. I was drawn to the light, but what about the darkness that followed? Just then, the engine sputtered and the car coughed as it slowed. His expression shifted. "What are you hiding?" Everything in me froze. I was about to be laid bare. I locked eyes with him, a million secrets swirling in my soul. Would I summon the courage to reveal the truth? Or would I keep running from it forever? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, Smash that like button, it really helps. Meow with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The engine finally came to a halt, and the silence that followed felt heavy with unspoken words. I shifted in my seat, my fingers digging into the plush fabric, searching for comfort where there was none. The man beside me, Steve, he'd told me his name, turned to face me, his dark eyes earnest, unraveling what little facade I had left. "What are you hiding?" he pressed, and though his tone was gentle, it sliced through my defenses. The world outside was a blur, brighter than it had been moments ago, but all I could focus on was the storm brewing inside me. My mind raced, piecing together the fragments of my reality. "I'm not hiding anything," I replied too quickly. The tremor in my voice betrayed me. What could I say without scaring him off? My story felt too heavy, too grotesque to share. Still, something within me craved honesty, a raw moment between two strangers, both adrift in their own oceans of despair. "Don't you want a new beginning?" he asked, his voice hopeful yet piercing. A vision of Maya bloomed in my mind, a little girl with wild, curly hair, eager to dream, yet burdened by the weight of our life. "Of course," I responded, the words spilled from me. "I want to keep my sister safe. I don't want to let her down." Steve looked at me, something shifting in his expression. "How could you let her down?" "You're here," he said softly. "You've already taken the hardest step by coming to me." I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the wave of vulnerability threatening to overtake me. "I got kicked off the bus. I don't have anywhere to go. I was trying to get us to my aunt's place. She always promised she would help. I don't know now." The truth fell from my lips like splintered glass, jagged and harsh. His brow furrowed, and for a moment, his gaze dropped to the steering wheel. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, could sense the struggle that danced between us. "That bus driver you mentioned, he said something terrible?" "Yes," I whispered. The shame wrapped its tendrils around my heart, squeezing painfully. "He didn't want me there." I shouldn't have been surprised. "I know it's how people see me." Steve's jaw clenched, and for a brief second, I saw an ember of rage flicker in his eyes. "Not everyone sees you that way," he said fiercely. "You deserve to be treated with respect." I sank back into my seat, surprised by the warmth spreading in my chest. Here was a stranger, and yet his conviction felt like a warm blanket against the chill of rejection I had faced. "Why do you care?" I asked, a measure of disbelief creeping into my voice. "Because I've been there," he confessed, his voice low and heavy with memories. "I know what it feels like to be beat down. It doesn't matter how much money you have. The pain is universal." His words hung in the air, a sudden clarity illuminating my darkness. I didn't know the depths of his story, but for the first time, I felt a connection, perhaps a flicker of hope amidst the shadows. But then the moment shattered with a sudden crash. A loud noise came from the hood of the car. Smoke began to billow, filling the vehicle ominously. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave. "What's happening?" I cried, glancing at Steve, whose expressions morphed from concern to something frantic. "Just stay calm." His voice had transformed, urgency jagged within it, as he reached for his phone. My heart raced. The sound of the engine sputtering echoed my fears. "Stay calm?" I cried, even with my voice faltering. What did he think this was? A mundane adventure? We were stranded on the highway with a threatening cloud rising from under the hood, no signs of help in sight. "I've got to call for assistance," Steve replied, as he furiously punched numbers into his phone. My instincts screamed at me. My heart thrummed with uncertainty, fleeting glimmers of trust now facing a battery of new worries. Then, the car's engine wheezed again, a sharp cough followed by a deafening silence. Every bit of comfort evaporated in an instant. I remembered the darkened road behind me, the isolation I had felt, and now it clawed back as the encroaching dust painted the world. Outside a bruised purple. Please, please, not like this, I whispered, feeling the panic rise again. Steve remained resolute, frowning down at the phone, but it was my voice that broke next, echoing with a raw desperation. What if we don't get out of here? Before he could reply, his phone rang. The sharp ring seemed to slice through our shared tension. He answered quickly, eyes darting to me, then back to the swirls of smoke looming outside. I could tell this was a more profound moment than my understanding could grasp. Was he about to reveal secrets that could change everything? Yeah, I need help. Where he paused, eyes widening. A chill filled the already cramped space. Wait, what do you mean you know her? Instantly, the world felt as if it had tilted on its axis. What? Who? I barely managed to ask, heart pounding against my ribs. Steve's expression morphed, the anger I'd seen earlier instead transforming into shock, as if a bombshell had just detonated in our midst. No, he murmured, disbelief shading his voice. But the question lingered, looming large between us. The unknown presence that had been building in the air now felt toxic. It thrummed with anticipation. Something uncertain and significant had shifted, and in that charged moment beneath the dying light, dread stalked closer. What had he just uncovered? And what, if anything, did it mean for me? As the line crackled with static, the silence settled heavily around us, a palpable tension pooling in the air. I watched Steve grapple with reality, confusion and disbelief warring in his expression. It felt as if the world outside had painted itself in shadows, the night deepening like an ink spill, shrouding my fragile hopes in darkness. I can't believe this, he murmured, his hand trembling slightly as he gripped the phone. Are you sure? How is that possible? The questions hung in the air, mirroring the swirling uncertainty in my heart. My breath caught in my throat. The phrase "you know her" replayed in my mind like a bad dream. Who did he know? Was it someone connected to my past? I felt like a marionette cut loose from its strings, aimlessly thrashing as I sought clarity in the chaos. Steve, please, I said, urgency tinged with fear. Who are you talking about? He held up a finger to hush me, his brow furrowed, engrossed in the one-sided conversation. Time seemed to stretch, each second weighing heavy with the implication of what could unravel. Anxiety knotted in my stomach. I knew that the answers loomed somewhere in the uncertainty, yet felt terrifyingly out of reach. Finally, he hung up, his jaw clenched tight. That was my sister. The word slipped from his mouth, with a weight that sent a jab of alarm through me. She's in town, and she has connections that could help us. Hope flickered, fragile as a candle flame in a storm. Connections? What kind? I couldn't breathe, wary of believing too fully in the possibility. She works with a charity that aids sisters and brothers struggling to stay together, especially in cases like yours, he explained, but then hesitated, as if testing the waters of his next statement. She may know something about your family. Why didn't you mention it before? I shot back, the desperation in my voice revealing more than I intended. The rush of emotions felt raw and untamed, anger mingling with a growing sense of vulnerability. You know how much I need help, because I didn't know. He raised his voice, frustration bubbling beneath his calm exterior. I thought I was just giving a ride to someone in need, not getting involved in family mysteries. As he turned away momentarily, I took a steadying breath, with the presence of conflict mixing with an aching bond between us. I could sense that perhaps our entwined stories had more in common than I first believed. The vehemence of the moment dissipated for just an instant, replaced by a fleeting understanding. But before I could say anything, he looked back at me, confusion and regret etched into his features. I know what it's like to feel abandoned, to hope for kindness amid chaos. I'm just trying to help, he said, vulnerability spilling into the creases of his voice. I swallowed hard. You don't understand me. Past has shadows that creep too close, and trust has never come easily. And you're right, he replied softly. I don't know all of it. But if there's any chance to help you find your sister, to keep her safe, it's worth reaching out. It's worth everything to me. His sincerity radiated in the cramped space, igniting an ember of hope within me. For the first time since I had been ejected from the bus, I glimpsed a pathway through the fog. Can we call her now? I asked, trembling with the weight of the decision. What if she can help us? Help me find Maya? Steve nodded, determination hardening his features. But we'll need to stick together. I won't let anything happen to you. You have my word. The evening shadows curled around us, still thick and foreboding, but a flicker of hope emerged in its depths. He pulled out his phone again, and this time, there was an energy in his movements that charged the atmosphere. Smoke from the car dissipated slightly, replaced by the promise of new beginnings. As he dialed, I took stock of my emotions. Fear, hope, anger were battling like warriors, each trying to stake their claim on my heart. What if this call led to the salvation of my sister, the end of this crossroad? Yet underneath that flicker of hope was dread, a haunting voice that whispered, what if it's too late? Just then, the eerie screech of metal against metal ripped through the night, slicing the air and sending shockwaves through both of us. The hood of the car sparked ominously, a swift glint of light amid advancing darkness. I gasped, my heart racing in adrenaline-laden confusion. What was that? Panic rose, smothering the flicker of hope that dared to expand. Stay here, Steve commanded, flipping the hood up, but as the issue unfolded, the fear coiled back around me anew, and I felt the walls of uncertainty draw inexorably closer. Steve, no! My voice erupted in a plea as I sensed the sudden shift of presence lurking that neither of us could see. The fear was suddenly overlaid with an ominous realization. What if this presence was connected to my past, the darkness I had tried to escape? He paused, glancing back at me, eyes wide as if he too felt the shift. The air was thick with an uneasy energy, and my gut churned, warning me that answers were close yet infinitely far. Before I could draw a breath, the car's engine erupted in a furious roar, too loud, too violent. My heart raced in syncopation with the chaos, cascading through the remains of everything we had sought: safety, escape, hope, and then came a metallic crunch. It hit me like a bullet to the chest. There inside the chaos, the horrors of my untold past clawed their way to the surface. Get down! Steve yelled just as the cacophony surged, and in the maelstrom of shadows, I realized the night had only just begun to unravel its secrets. As the relentless chaos unfolded around us, everything slammed into stillness for a fleeting second. The engine sputtered and hissed, smoke curling into the air like angry spirits escaped from a long-buried grave. My pulse raced, the world collapsing into a tight pinprick of dread as I struggled to keep my place in the storm. Get down! Steve's voice cut through the noise, a sharp command that jolted me back to reality. I curled low, pressing myself against the hard metal of the car, heart hammering at the edges of sanity. Thoughts spiraled, shadows of people I had loved, of choices I made, clutched in the talons of a past I thought I had evaded. The moment seemed perpetual, stretched raw with fear, and then he was beside me, fumbling for his phone, adrenaline casting bright shadows of urgency across his face. "I'm calling 911. He yelled over the clamoring chaos. "Wait," I managed to breathe out, gripping his arm. The feeling was visceral, an awareness that washed over me, heavy and found. What if it's not just the car that's in danger? What if someone is coming for us? I didn't believe in ghosts of my past, yet here I was, tension dancing along my spine, dragging along memories I had buried deep. The fear of the unseen swirled like a thick fog, intensifying the pulse of dread that thrummed through the night. Steve pulled back, eyes flaring wide. "What do you mean?" "The shadows, they might not be just a part of this night. They could be mine. Our lives are intertwined somehow." My words stumbled, raw with the weight of truth. I sensed it in the way my heart had reacted to the flicker of Steve's intent, each true declaration unveiling layers of unease that I wished would stay hidden. "Just stay behind me," he said, positioning himself between me and the source of the impending dread. The blend of his resolve and determination radiated a warmth I clung to as the tremors in my hands began to settle, if only marginally. Then, from the depth of the darkness, a figure stepped forward, backlit by the gnarled glow of the car's remaining embers, its shadow crawling on the pavement like an omen of despair. My breath caught, a familiar silhouette lurking at the periphery of my consciousness, sending icy tendrils down my spine. Who is that?" Steve whispered, disbelief lining his features. The figure stepped closer, revealing a woman whose piercing eyes shot through the obscured veil of familiarity. It was the kind of recognition that hits you like a shot of ice water, a sudden, chill awakening. I was captured in the loop of her gaze, the world around us blurring into a haze. "Jasmine," she said, voice cool and smooth, echoing a name that sent tremors of my past swirling violently in my mind. I gasped, recognition flooding over me like a tsunami. You can't be here." Panic flared through me like wildfire. "You were dead?" she finished balefully, a wicked grin inching across her features. "Not quite, darling. I've just been busy. There are many layers to survival, you know. What do you want?" My voice trembled, a whirlwind of anger and buried sorrow. Each breath tasted of betrayal, the sweet exhale of a sister, lost and found. In the frenzy of emotion, hope and fear entangled in a bitter dance. This was the complexity of family buried beneath clashing destinies. Could she hold the key to my sister's fate? She stepped forward, and I saw the fragments of myself alive in her. "You should have been with us, Jasmine. I was looking out for you." She let the words linger, as if spinning a weave of deception. "But you've strayed too far from the warmth of our family. What you call warmth, I call a life of fear." I clenched my fists, adrenaline pushing back surging emotions. "You did this to us." Steve shifted slightly, gauging the tension in the air, his expression hardened and watchful. "This isn't a game," he said, edging closer protectively. "You need to leave her alone. Babe, she and I are just having a little family reunion," the woman cooed, malice edging her voice as she grinned at him. "I think you should turn around while you're still able. No one messes with a storm and lives to tell the tale." The darkness around us thickened, pushing against my chest as I fought against the turmoil. "You think this is over? You think you'll just follow in your footsteps?" I took a step towards her, the ache of the moment settling sharp in my throat. "You underestimated me, like you always have." Her laugh echoed a chilling sound that whipped up memories like dry leaves in an autumn gust. "Hey, raise the irony. In the end, we seek each other to fill the empty spaces. But you, my dear sister, have a choice to make." "What choice?" The words slipped out, laced with fear and anticipation. "Join me, and we'll uncover what family truly means. Or ignore the ties that bind, and seek the truth you believe in." "Like you did?" I spat back, the flames of anger rising. "And drag us back into darkness?" "Perhaps." She smiled, a terrible, enticing offer wrapped in shadows. "But consider the wisdom of a family who survived, who twisted fate to their own design. You might find the key to your sister lies in following my path." A heavy pause settled between us, choking off any remnants of hope. Ignoring the tumultuous war within, memories crashed relentlessly against my mental whirlwind of love lost and betrayal incurred. Yet as I stood there, battling the psychological yoke of my past, something shifted. Beneath the acrid scent of burning metal and the specters of our unresolved conflicts, one truth pulsed in my veins. This wasn't just my reclamation to make. I couldn't navigate these waters alone. I needed Steve's warmth beside me, and yet I sensed the storm between this family of twisted ties still beckoned for a desperate resolution. Before I could comprehend the ramifications of my choices, The shout for help echoed through the cool evening, fracturing whatever semblance of safety remained. "Help is coming!" What started as an inflection of dread turned into a dagger of fate, piercing all notions of escape, time unspooling as the woman before me faded into the shadows, her smile floorboards creaking underfoot. "Be careful with your decisions, Jasmine," she called back hauntingly, a promise laced with cruelty. "Remember, time does teach usefully if we're willing to listen to the whispers in the dark." As the sirens began to wail in the distance, laced with the promise of chaos, it became painfully clear that the night was far from over. My choices loomed like storm clouds, and time felt suspended between finding my sister and facing the demons that haunted my very existence. The sirens wailed in the distance, a harsh reminder that help was on its way, a beacon of hope mixed with dread. I felt Steve's presence beside me, firm and comforting, yet the icy tendrils of uncertainty still clutched at my heart. My sister's shadow lingered in the periphery of my mind, and her words twisted around my thoughts like barbed wire. "You've strayed too far from the warmth of our family." What warmth? The one that kept us shackled in darkness? As the distant lights flickered through the trees, they brought with them both relief and trepidation. But all I could think about was Jasmine, the haunting smile she wore, and the insidious invitation buried under layers of her malice. The screaming sirens clashed against my spiraling thoughts, shoving me towards a decision I wasn't ready to make. "Jasmine," I whispered, feeling the name slice through the night air like a jagged edge. "Why were you even here? What do you really want from me?" Steve turned to me, concern etching deep lines on his face. "We need to get out of here. The paramedics could be in danger too. Let's just focus on surviving this." "But I can't just leave her," I shot back, the defiance igniting within me. "She's family. There has to be a way to save her, both of us." "Jasmine," he urged, stepping in front of me, grounding me with the weight of his sincerity. "You have to think clearly. You lost your sister. What you saw wasn't her. It was a ghost from your past trying to pull you back into a dangerous web. Focus on the now, on us. On us." The words felt foreign against a backdrop of shifting loyalties and unresolved emotions. My heart raced with a love that flickered uncertainly like a candle in the wind. "While I'm potentially losing everything I've ever known, I'm not asking you to forget her. Just to be careful. You need to protect yourself first." His voice was a steady anchor, and yet comprehension of my sister's words had left me reeling. Before I could respond, the sirens grew louder, and the lights painted the surrounding trees like specters in a twisted play. Shadows danced, and dread rode through my veins as familiar figures carved their way through the darkness. Were they here to help, or did their presence portend further misfortune? "We need to move," I insisted, glancing back towards the spot where Jasmine had disappeared. "If we don't face this now, it won't just end." A mere nod from Steve, but in his eyes, I saw the battle of emotions, a torrent of understanding that gripped at my heart. This journey was about more than just my sister. It was about confronting the past, the legacy I carried like a weight in both arms and soul. As the ambulance pulled up, wheels skidding to a halt, two medics leaped out and rushed toward us, their voices blending with the wailing sirens. "Are you hurt?" "What happened?" Amidst the chaos, I felt a moment of clarity, as if the shadows receding allowed light to spill forth, igniting hope within. "Yes, Nosh was here." "My sister? She needs help too." "She's lost," I stammered, frantic to explain, yearning for someone to bridge the chasm of familiarity and horror that consumed me. The medic looked at me with wary compassion, but as they moved closer, I felt an overwhelming instinct urging me to remain detached, to not involve anyone else in this chaos yet. "She's not gone yet, is she?" I asked hoarsely, seizing onto a thread of denial that refused to unravel. One of the medics exchanged a glance with her partner. "If we can find her, we'll do everything we can. Stay together while we help you." I turned back to Steve. We can't just leave her to sink into darkness. Please, look, he said softly. If we find her, then we can help her together. But we need to make sure you're safe first. His eyes brimmed with warmth, squeezing my shoulder, his steady weight urging me to find balance in the storm within. I swallowed hard, but the unease spiraled in my mind. Would I have to make a choice? Abandon the shadows of my sister, who seemed so close yet so far, or face the treacherous storm of my own past? Just as hope flickered, the darkness coiling back around us like a black cloud, another scream cut through the night, the wail of a child, small and desperate. The voice rang out, a fractured plea for help that echoed endlessly. Please. Someone, help me. The sound unleashed a surge of adrenaline, a surge that momentarily eclipsed my grappling fears. My heart raced. That's not Jasmine. Who is that? Well, find out. Steve's grip tightened as we began to move towards the source of the call, fueled by instinct and panic. The darkness wavered, and my sister's shadow fell behind me, eclipsing into the unforgiving night as the sight of another heart in peril pulled me forward against the tide of emotion threatening to drown me whole. As we pushed through the bramble and into the faint glow from the ambulance lights, the fear of everything I'd lost collided with the hope I had for this unknown child. Close your eyes, I told myself. This was not about Jasmine anymore. This was a new choice, a step into the fray, out into the night that promised answers and lay traps for the unprepared. Yet just as I reached the clearing, the lights flared upon a figure sprawled on the ground. And the breath caught in my throat when I realized I recognized that small face all too well. Jasmine? I whispered, shaking as I felt the world tilt beneath my feet, surprise locking me in its grasp. But as I rushed forward, unsure of whether to comfort or confront, the oppressive weight of fate pressed heavily around me, shrouding the truth I had yet to face. In the fabric of darkness, it was clear. The night was still far from its end, and only the dawn would unveil the true shape of what lay ahead. The child's lifeless body lay draped in shadows, but the familiar features hit me like a freight train, the same arch of the eyebrow, the same delicate curve of the mouth. Jasmine! The word tumbled out of me in a gasp, a prayer, a plea, and the desperation waded deeper into my gut, twisting like a dagger carved from the grief I had been holding at Is that really her. Steve's voice was thick with disbelief, but I couldn't dwell on his reaction. My feet were already pounding against the earth, racing toward the small form that seemed swallowed by the night. My heart thudded painfully against my ribcage as I knelt beside her and cupped her face in trembling hands. At first glance, she looked peaceful, almost angelic, except for the ominous pallor that hinted at something terrible. Jasmine, please wake up. My voice was raw, echoing against the backdrop of trees watching silently, shadows closing in once more as if to conspire against us. The medics were quick to respond, rushing in behind me, their voices infused with urgency. We need space, one shouted, gently pushing me back. I didn't want to leave her side, but a part of me knew there was more at stake than mere physicality. I rose, grasping Steve's arm as terror danced at the edges of my mind. They began to assess her, and I watched helplessly as they checked for a pulse, fingers moving with a practiced ease that belied the storm raging within me. Please, just bring her back, I whispered beneath my breath, hoping against all reason for a miracle. How could this be happening? The night had twisted into a bizarre nightmare, and I didn't have the courage to bear this reality. Give us room to work. The medic's shout was urgent, demanding compliance as I fought against the instinct to leap forward. Steve stood beside me, his eyes wide with the same turmoil, wrestling his own questions around the abhorrent image of my sister sprawled on the gritty ground. Stay strong, he urged, his voice a soft anchor against the chaos, but I could barely hear him over the thundering of my heartbeat and the distant sirens silhouetting our memories around us. Moments felt like hours as I paced back and forth, panic wrapping around my throat. Then one of the medics crouched closer, their hand on Jasmine's shoulder, shaking her gently. "Come on, sweetie, wake up for us," they coaxed, and I flinched at the way their voice carried false hope, an illusion I had staked my heart on too many times before. But as seconds collapsed into a silence thicker than the night air, dread seeped deeper into my bones. Had she succumbed to whatever darkness had so fiercely gripped her, pulled her into the abyss? "Stop!" The shriek tore through me unexpectedly, a blend of fear and fierce protectiveness I hadn't realized was there until it bubbled to the surface. What if this is a mistake? What if she's just lost in the shadows? She needs me. Listen, please. Just trust the process, Steve stressed, his brow furrowed with concern as he stepped closer, trying to ground me. But it felt too late for calm reason to penetrate my overwhelming fear. And then, like a spell broken, the silence shattered as a gasp escaped Jasmine's lips. My entire body froze, hope igniting like wildfire, brightening the corners of my heart once more. "Jasmine!" I burst forth, pressing closer, yet a wicked chill swept through me as I realized her eyes remained shut, her breath ragged and shallow. "She needs to wake up, please," I implored, fear spilling over into action, as a sudden swell of adrenaline coursed through me. I couldn't wait. What if she was lost in between dimensions like I had been warned? I grasped her hand, squeezing tightly. "Wake up! You're not alone." And with that plea, the darkness rippled, as if acknowledging my desperate voice. But instead of waking, a sudden shift jolted Jasmine's frame. I recoiled as her eyes fluttered open, vacant and glassy, the light extinguished within them. The world around me blurred with bewildered emotions, and I could hardly recognize the face before me. "Jasmine?" I breathed, barely able to hold on to hope, yet terrified that I would be greeted by something unrecognizable. It's okay," came a murmur, but her voice didn't belong to the confident sister I knew. It seemed dulled, as if submerged beneath layers of murky water. The medics surged closer, their expressions a flurry of urgency and professionalism, wrapping her in the blanket of safety she desperately needed. But what began as relief twisted sharply again, a knot tightening within me as a lingering doubt whispered ominously. What had she witnessed? What horrors had she seen in the void that had captivated so many souls? Suddenly, Jasmine's voice grew stronger, though it trembled, batting against the encroaching darkness. "You left me." Her words struck like lightning, and the ground shifted beneath me. A cold shiver danced across my spine, a haunting echo of the fear I had buried deep. "Jasmine, I would never leave you," I stammered, but her face was racked with an unfathomable sorrow that carved deeper valleys of despair within my heart. "You don't understand," she gasped, the pain in her voice slicing through the swirling dread, as if she were bearing witness to something no one else could see. "You didn't." Terror gripped me as shadows seemed to converge once more, pulling darkness back into the light, tempting secrets I wasn't ready to comprehend. What had happened during those dark moments? What would her revelation cost me? In that critical moment, fraught with tension, I saw the paramedics' expressions shift as they caught their breath in shock. My heartbeats thundered in sync with my unfolding fears. We were tethered to something much more profound than an accident. There lingered within the air a promise of pain and dark truths tangled like roots beneath the earth. As Jasmine's eyes fluttered again, they bore a shimmer of something unfathomably and understanding too profound to grasp, like a mirror reflecting dark waters back at me. Would I narrow the distance between us, or would the shadows claim her for good? In a moment of sheer terror and desperation, reality blurred around me. The medics fumbled with their equipment, their voices quick as they prepared to wrap my sister in the cocoon of safety. But I stood frozen, the next choice looming grandly ahead, facing the abyss, or drowning in fractured memories that had never truly let me go. And just as the tension simmered, Jasmine's voice, raspy and profound, pierced through the night once again. "Everything is about to change." The chaos of the night settled into a surreal stillness, like the calm before a storm. The paramedics worked around Jasmine, orchestrating a dance of urgency and precision, their breaths quickening as they tended to her frail body. It felt as if I were trapped in a dream where time unraveled slowly, leaving me helplessly spinning in a torrent of emotions. "Everything is about to change," Jasmine had whispered, her voice trembling, cleaving through the air with a weight I could hardly comprehend. My heart clenched at the words, a premonition unfurling before me in shades of fear and confusion. What could she possibly mean? What dark knowledge had danced with her in those hollow moments? I could see the cloud of concern etched across Steve's features, a silent acknowledgement that we stood on the precipice of something monumental. "She's going to be okay," he murmured, trying to anchor me back from the edge of despair. Yet even his reassurance felt like debris tossed adrift in a storm. I couldn't focus on the possibility of her recovery when shadows clung relentlessly to my sister's every breath. As they began to carry her onto a stretcher, I fought against the waves of chaos to reach out. I grasped Jasmine's hand, holding it tightly, willing my warmth to seep into her skin. "Stay with me, Jasmine. You're not alone," I whispered fervently, praying that my words could pierce through whatever veil had taken her from me. The paramedics moved swiftly, but a sudden crescendo of sirens crescendoed behind them, a cacophony that drew closer, blending into the night like jagged edges of shattered glass. The lights flashed, casting ghostly shadows around us. I felt the world tilt, the familiar now and unrecognizable landscape of urgency and fear. "Get in the ambulance," Steve urged, guiding me towards the rear doors. Panic clawed at me. I didn't want to be separated from Jasmine. A part of me fought against the tide of professionals flooding into her small cocoon, but even as they loaded her onto the stretcher, I felt an echo of resolve flickering deep within. The moment the doors swung shut, sealing me outside, I was hit with an overwhelming sense of loss and acute awareness of how swiftly everything could be snatched away. Steve stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder, attempting to reach through my haze of denial. "She's going to be all right, Miranda," he repeated, as if trying to convince both of us. I followed the ambulance, heart racing as we drove through the night, wishing for the firestorm of thoughts in my mind to settle. Why had I let her venture out alone? Why hadn't I been more vigilant? Regret flooded through me in waves, suffocating the flicker of hope that had ignited within when Jasmine had gasped for breath. The emergency room felt colder than the world outside, a sterile, harsh reality that smothered the warmth of human connection. So many lives entwined, yet each heartbreak stood solitary, a lament unheard by others. I gave my information to the receptionist, my hands trembling as I scribbled my name. Everything felt a blur, stitched together by the threads of dread that kept me anchored to my sister's side. Minutes turned into hours, time no longer relevant as worry gnawed at my insides. Steve glanced around the waiting room, his brow furrowing each time he caught sight of a doctor's coat. We sat in silence, surrounded by families glowing with fear, sharing empty cups of coffee and fearful glances. But I felt detached from their stories. My mind was fixated solely on Jasmine. Finally, a doctor emerged, his face tightened with a solemn expression. My heart raced as I stood, gripping the edge of the plastic chair. "She's stable for now," he began, but the words barely registered. "However, we do need to monitor her closely." "Monitor her?" I echoed, my voice trembling. What if monitor meant something I wasn't prepared for? Something darker, that lingered just beyond the fringes of my understanding? "Yes," he continued, "but there's something we'd like to discuss regarding what happened. Jasmine mentioned an encounter, something about the shadows." My breath hitched, icy tendrils slithering down my spine. Jasmine had always felt more attuned to the unseen stories of spirits, and echoes of the past had danced through our childhood, but I had never taken them seriously. What could she possibly have seen that would shake a trained professional? Is she all right?" I pressed, desperation clawing at my throat. What did she mean? The doctor hesitated, glancing behind him as if the shadows themselves were listening, and my heart plunged into a fathomless pit of uncertainty. Jasmine experienced something traumatic, he finally admitted, his gaze steady but kind. We're currently evaluating her mental state, and we may have to involve a psychologist for further assessment. A chill zipped through me at the thought. Every inch of me screamed against the idea of my sister being subjected to more scrutiny. I wanted her to come home, to be whole again, but the depths of her experience stretched far beyond the surface of my comfort. In that space realm between asking how and what had happened, I suddenly felt a pull towards something I feared yet needed to confront. Guilt swirled more than anger. It fueled the insatiable hunger to understand what lay within her mind, the source of her turmoil. As I turned, ready to slate my fears with a quest for truth, a figure brushed past me in the hallway, an elderly woman leaning heavily on her cane. She paused, catching my eye, and for a moment, the weight of her glance felt deeply profound. "You look like you're fighting shadows," she said softly, her voice raspy yet warm. "But courage is a guide, my dear. Remember that." And then she was gone just like that, drifting into the ether, leaving me with an unbearable weight of unknowing. Courage, I whispered to myself, a flicker of hope amidst the churning dread. But as I turned back toward the waiting area, something shifted within me. What truths were hidden in Jasmine's silence, and how could I unearth the light from within the deepest recesses of our haunted thoughts? Just as I steeled myself to confront this dark path ahead, a familiar chill flitted through the air, the sensation of shadows swirling close. Jasmine's voice reverberated in my mind, a haunting echo tinged with fear. "You didn't." My heart seized with unease. What had she not told me? What darkness was encroaching on our lives, waiting for the right moment to surface? Everything is about to change. The weight of those words settled heavily alongside an unsettling resolve. The night had only just begun to unfold its darkest secrets. The fluorescent lights flickered with an almost sinister rhythm, as if they were trying to communicate some unnameable truth that danced just beyond comprehension. I sat curled up in the stiff waiting room chair, my fingers intertwined in anxious knots, lost in my thoughts, while the rest of the world rifled through their own dramas. Hours slipped away, merging time into an unrecognizable stretch of silence filled only by the distant yelps and beeps of machines that punctuated the somber air. "Miranda," Steve's voice cut through the haze, jarring me back to reality. As I turned my gaze to him, I noted the fatigue etched into his features, and the gravity of our situation settled heavier upon my chest. "We need to talk." A surge of apprehension gripped me, but I nodded anyway, making my way towards the far corner of the waiting room, away from prying ears. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He hesitated, casting a furtive glance over his shoulder before he spoke. "I spoke with some of the nurses. They said Jasmine's been having nightmare episodes. They're concerned it might link to what happened out there." He pressed a finger to his temple like he was trying to make a connection in his own mind. I don't know if we can protect her from this." Panic washed over me, crashing in unruly waves. "So that's it? We just sit here and hope the nightmares don't consume her? Hope she doesn't suffocate in her own silence?" My voice rose, an uncontrollable swell of frustration mingling with despair. "I'm not saying it's hopeless," he replied gently, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Maybe we can do something. Talk to someone who understands more than we do." I shook my head vehemently. "You heard what the doctor said, a psychologist?" "No, that can't be the answer. I can't let them dissect my sister's world, Steve." The thought was unbearable. Each word felt like barbed wire stabbing into my heart. His gaze softened. "But we can't deny that something happened to her. If we want her to heal, to stop this spiraling, I want her to come home." I interrupted, emotions spiking dangerously high. "I want the Jasmine I knew, the one who taught me the constellations and danced freely without fear." Steve stepped closer, his eyes earnest. "And I want that for you both. but we have to face the reality. We're in over our heads, Miranda. The truth stung, encapsulating the reality that we were both navigating dark waters, our hearts tethered to Jasmine while being pulled away by currents we couldn't even see. I bit the inside of my cheek, the metallic taste of blood grounding me. What if we just talked to her? I suggested, hope slowly creeping in a fragile but ready to bloom. What if I sit with her? Maybe she just needs someone to remind her of the light. Steve nodded, albeit reluctantly. It's worth a shot, he relented, though worry lingered in his gaze. Let's go. In that moment, I felt a fresh determination. We could tackle this together. My heart was beating to the rhythm of something akin to courage. As the nurse led us into her room, the sterile scent of antiseptic hung heavily in the air, sharp enough to trigger a pang of discomfort in my gut. There, lying small amidst the beeping monitors and dispassionate machinery, was Jasmine. Her face looked drawn, a hint of the radiant sister who had always lit up my world strangled beneath layers of fear. I approached her bed cautiously, awash in a flood of conflicting emotions. Hey Jay, I whispered, pulling a chair close to her side. It's me. Her eyelids fluttered open, revealing eyes that held a depth of sadness I'd never seen before. Mira, she murmured, her voice cracking like ice. I'm scared. I know, but you're not alone. I'm right here. I took her small hand in mine, desperately willing my warmth to seep into her cold fingers. Just focus on my voice, okay? We can get through this together. Tears pooled in her eyes, shimmering like tiny galaxies. The shadows they won't leave me alone. Suddenly, the fragments of my childhood memories rushed back, stories of supernatural entities, fear woven into every tale. Tell me what you saw, Jasmine, I urged, squeezing her hand tighter, anchoring us both. What were the shadows? Her breath wavered as she struggled against her anxiety, and I could see the fight within her. They whispered. They said I disrupted something. Something that should have been left alone. My heart sank, the implications of her words pressing down on me like a weight too heavy to bear. Disrupted what? I pressed, desperation clawing at my throat. I don't know, she stammered, her face crumpling. But they're angry. And I think she paused, her eyes darting away as fear filled them. I think they want something from us. Horrified realization began to take root. What do they want, Jazz? I whispered, the breath catching in my throat. Her gaze turned to the window, as if the shadows were lingering just beyond the glass, watching us. I don't know, but I feel them. They're closer now, and it's not safe. A chill slithered through my veins as a deep dread settled in the pit of my stomach. What had we unraveled? What threads had we pulled that could potentially ensnare us in a web of darkness we couldn't escape? And just as I opened my mouth to reassure Jasmine, a piercing scream shattered the uncertainty. The sound echoed through the hall, unmistakably human, a cry filled with agony, reverberating down the sterile corridors and settling into the cracks of my heart. I met Steve's gaze, terror reflected in his eyes. This night had only just begun, and whatever shadows had descended around us felt more alive than ever. The darkness was creeping closer, and the truth was now unearthing itself, a hidden nightmare that awaited our inevitable confrontation. Time itself felt suspended, twisting like the very shadows we feared, and uncertainty loomed larger than any promise of safety. As I gripped Jasmine's hand tighter, the echo of that wrenching scream seemed to reverberate through the very air we breathed, wrapping itself around us like a shroud made of fear. The nurses rushed past, their expressions taut with urgency, leaving me in a haze of confusion and helplessness. I turned my head instinctively, searching for the source of the sound, my heart racing in concert with the sinister dread pooling in my stomach. Miranda, Jasmine's voice was so faint I almost didn't catch it, a mere whisper slipping through her trembling lips. They're coming for us. What was coming? My mind raced, desperate to make sense of it all. I tried to mask the terror in my voice, to instill even a fragment of steadiness in her. But as I spoke, I could see the shadows of her nightmares creeping back, curling around the edges of her imagination like a darkness illuminating the room. Before I could formulate a response, a nurse hurriedly entered, a look of urgency pulling her features taut. "We're going to need you both to step out for a moment," she instructed without preamble, glancing nervously between Jasmine and me, as if she could sense the thick tension hanging in the air. And "Oh, please," I pleaded, reluctant to leave my sister even for a second. "She's scared." "I can help her, Miranda. We don't have time." Steve's voice sliced through the chaos, and I looked up, seeing the panic mirrored in his eyes. "We have to go." Reluctantly, I rose from my seat, trying not to break eye contact with Jasmine. "Just hold on, okay? It'll be right outside," I promised, squeezing her hand one final time before stepping into the bustling hallway filled with nurses and the hurried footfalls of doctors. As we stepped out, the cacophony of the hospital seemed to pale compared to the storm brewing in my heart. "What's going on?" I demanded, walking fast to keep up with Steve's hurried pace. Why did she say that? I don't know, but whatever happened, it rattled the whole floor. He grimaced, leading us toward a nurse's station, where a few staff members were conferring in low, urgent whispers. "We need information." We waited silently, as they spoke in tight circles, and I seized the moment to catch my breath. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, a harsh reminder of this sterile environment. I felt a burning need to protect Jasmine from these growing shadows whispering against the framework of my mind. Suddenly, a nearby door swung open, and a doctor emerged, scanning the waiting area before locking eyes with me. "Are you Miranda?" he asked, keeping his tone measured yet emphatic. "Yes," I breathed, a wave of anxiety washing over me as he approached. "Jasmine is in a stable condition, but we recommend absorbing her feelings as best as you can," he said. "Sometimes trauma manifests in ways we don't yet understand." In that moment, clarity broke through the haze. The doctor was giving me permission, a sign that engaging Jasmine was crucial. I needed to be the tether, the guiding light amidst the uncertainty. "Where is she?" I asked, eager to return to her side. "Just a moment," he replied, then hesitated before adding, "There's been a circumstance. It's a bad time, isn't it?" Steve interrupted, watching the doctor intently, his hands tightening into fists. "Let's not sugarcoat this," the doctor frowned. "There are protocols in place we must follow when situations such as screams arise from our patients. Considering Jasmine's current state, we need to monitor her more closely for the time being. I'll keep you updated, but I can't promise when you'll be able to see her." My heart stuttered, the knife edge of fear slicing deeper. "What does that even mean?" I spat, feeling the weight of uncertainty press down. "She needs us." His eyes softened, recognition shining in them as he nodded, but there was an undercurrent of helplessness in his voice. "I understand. But we also have to consider her mental safety, and right now, we need to help her before the shadows overwhelm her entirely." Steve's arm wrapped around my shoulders, steadying me when it felt like the world was crumbling. "Miranda, listen. We'll figure this out," he murmured, though his own voice trembled like a taut string. And just as I opened my mouth to respond, a loud crash resounded from further down the hallway, sending out shockwaves of panic. Nurses shouted, rushing toward the source of the commotion while doctors scrambled to follow. "Something's wrong," I gasped, instinctively pulling away from Steve and attempting to see what lay behind the chaos. "Stay here," he called, but I could see the concern mirrored in his eyes. They were all about to realize a profound truth tonight had taken on an entirely new shape, and whatever was haunting Jasmine was extending its reach to the entire facility. I shoved my way toward the source of the noise. As I raced past the chaos unfolding in the halls, a lingering question gripped my mind. What had we stumbled upon? Just beyond the corner, my breath caught in my throat as I witnessed a figure looming in stark black, its outline unnatural against the sterile white of the walls. Then it turned, and all I could see was a pair of hollow eyes staring back, a reflection of neglect, and an all too familiar dread clawing at my identity. In that split second, I recognized one undeniable truth. We weren't up against the shadows Jasmine feared. We had unleashed something much darker, far more powerful, something that wanted to pull us all into the depths of despair. I stumbled back, heart racing as a chilling realization battered against my ribs. "Steve, we have to go." My voice trembled with urgency, eclipsing everything around us as I recalled Jasmine's terrified words. They want something from us. And in that moment, I realized our battle had only just begun. The air felt charged with an unshakable weight as I pressed my back against the cold hospital wall, the chaos of the night surging around me. I watched the figure in dark shadows pulse and flicker in and out of existence, a grotesque reflection of all I had tried to escape. Panic billowed in my chest, pushing me forward, but instinct pulled me back. What had I unleashed upon us? "Miranda." Steve's voice broke through the fog of fear, urgency interlaced with determination. "We need to get out of here." He grabbed my arm, stealing my resolve, but the figure lurked just behind him, its hollow gaze filled with an emptiness that felt dangerously familiar. "No!" I shouted, instinctively taking a step back, my body trembling under the weight of everything I had witnessed. "No! We can't leave. Jasmine is in there. She needs us." And yet there it was, the fear constricting like a vice around my heart. It screamed the truth. Maybe it was too late for us. Maybe the shadows I had run from had finally caught up. My mind flashed with remnants of my sister's irradiated face, the fear that filled her eyes, as she had whispered that the shadows were coming for us. I needed to protect her, to heal what had been broken, but I felt so powerless. I am not leaving her, I insisted, clinging resolutely to the notion that love could light our way through the thickening darkness. But deep down, a pit of dread wormed its way into my thoughts, battling against my courage. "Miranda, listen to me." Steve's voice was sharp, pleading. "We can't save her if we're consumed ourselves. We have to regroup, find a way to bring her back." He glanced hurriedly towards the hall where the figure had retreated, and I sensed the uncertainty swirling within him. I held my breath. The shadows clung to my skin, a haunting reminder of the ghosts of my past. Yet I could feel the lingering warmth of love sparking inside me, reminding me of the strength we'd found together in this painful journey. Those shadows wanted to divide us, to tear apart the fragile threads we'd woven over this night's trials. "I won't abandon her," I declared once more, resolute. I couldn't allow my sister to be consumed by the darkness I had faced for too long. "I don't care what it takes. We'll find a way." In that moment, everything shifted, and clarity cut through the fog that coated my mind. Behind the layers of fear, I realized that Jasmine had sensed the shadows because she carried them within herself. They were tied to us, reflections of a childhood twisted by neglect. "We have to confront whatever it is," I whispered, a burgeoning strength swelling within me, the fear morphing into fierce resolve. "We can heal her together." I could hear the siren still wailing in the backdrop, a cacophony of sounds melding into a somber symphony as I closed my eyes, willing myself to remember. There was something about the stories Jasmine had shared about shadows, whispers, and the sense of wanting. They were warnings, tales of connection obscured by fear. If we had faced the shadows of our past, could we not now embrace our future together? Steve nodded slowly, catching my spark. "Okay, then. But we need a plan. We can't rush in blindly." Before he could finish, the figure surged forward from the depths of darkness, shifting and riding toward us, shadows spilling into the light, twisting grotesquely as memories warped around its essence. "Enough!" it bellowed, a voice both familiar and foreign, tinged with an echo of resentment, the longing for something lost, a twisted sense of betrayal. "Who are you?" I shouted, heart hammering, standing my ground. "What do you want from us?" The shadow flickered, and in its depths, I swore I could see her, Jasmine, lost amidst chaos, swirling in a tempest of anguish. "You've always had the choice, Miranda," the dark silhouette sneered, speaking the words like an incantation. "To embrace the shadows or to be consumed by them." That moment felt suspended in time, the air thick with anxiety, and the fear of becoming what we had run from. I stood my ground, fists clenched at my sides, a defiant flame against the encroaching darkness. "We choose to fight," I proclaimed fiercely, my voice rising with power mixed with compassion. "We choose each other." The figure recoiled, as if my words were a blade of light cutting through the suffocating night. In that electric moment, I remembered, love was a tether, and love was our true weapon. "We won't let you take her," I shouted again, this time with raw conviction. The shadows around us seemed to growl in response, billowing like smoke, but as they drew closer, something shifted. The air shimmered briefly, and then I felt it, vibrations of warmth radiating from our hands, sparked by our connection, growing stronger as I clasped Steve's hand tightly in mine. I turned to him, courage igniting between USA's shared resolve to face the darkness as one. "Together," he murmured, a promise sparking in his steady gaze. "We can do this." I nodded, that promise igniting a fire within. I closed my eyes, drawing upon the memories of everyone I loved as a swirling essence of hope ignited my spirit. Filling my lungs with strength, I spoke once more, projecting with every ounce of energy within me. "Jasmine, we're coming for you. You're not lost in these shadows. You are not alone." And then, like a flame erupting in the darkness, I felt the shadows recoiling, banished by the light of our love. The room shook, and it echoed with the chorus of memories, our laughter, our battles, and the bonds that had tied us together against the odds. I could feel Jasmine's spirit stretching, reaching back towards us. The blackened form shimmered and twisted, revealing glimpses of my sister trapped within, the wavering light flickering against it. "Miranda," she cried, her voice a thread pulling me toward her warmth, "help me." And then it happened all at once. The connection surged through the darkness, illuminating the truth I had denied for too long. Our lives were woven together by the threads of our choices, intertwining our strengths, pain, and love. "Jasmine, we're here!" Steve yelled, pulling me closer as we pushed against the encroaching shadows, breathing life into our embrace. In that moment, a light pulsed from us, radiating outwards, igniting the air and searing the darkness until it splintered and recoiled. The figure twisted violently, and as I caught the full glimpse of Jasmine's face, a deep and profound clarity swept through me. "We'll face this together," I shouted, determination fueling every word. As the shadows dissipated, unraveling like mist in the dawn's light, I felt Jasmine's presence push against the darkness, her spirit breaking free, illuminated with the unwavering strength of love. And slowly, the room brightened, reclaiming light lost in lingering darkness. Jasmine appeared before me, her features filled with surprise, relief permeating through her gaze. "Miranda," she cried, bursting into my arms, her warmth flooding over me like a balm. "You found me." Tears pooled in my eyes, restrained for far too long, but freed by this fierce embrace reminding us that we had weathered the storm together. "You're never alone," I whispered, holding on to Jasmine's trembling frame. "We'll always fight for each other." The shadows that had threatened to consume us had dissolved into the light, chipping away at the oppressive weight they once held. As the light yawned wider, embracing us in its brilliance, I heard the whispers of support drawing upon my heart. Together we rose, entwined in hope and love. The battle of shadows perhaps never fully behind us, but for now, we had something far more powerful than our fear. We had family. "Everything really has changed," I whispered to Jasmine, the warmth wrapping around us like a healing embrace, revitalizing that which we thought lost. "Yes," she replied, her smile a radiant sun breaking through the past storm, "and it's just the beginning." In that moment, I understood, with absolute clarity, that dark or light, the paths we walked shaped us, but it was love that would always define us. And beneath the blanket of stars above, my heart soared with the promise that no matter the shadows, together, we would always find the light.